Hello, everyone, and welcome to our SANS webcast, Offensive Security Operations with Attack Surface Management and Always-On Pen Testing. My name is Randall Jones. I'm the Offensive Ops Marketing Manager here at SANS, and I'll be moderating today's webcast. Today's featured speaker is Chris Dale. Chris has been teaching for SANS since 2012, so happy 10 years, Chris. Thank you very much. He teaches several of our Offensive Ops courses here, including Security 504, Hacker Techniques, Security 599, our Purple Team course, and our newest course, Security 550, Cyber Deception and Active Defense, of which he is one of the authors. So Chris is also the founder of River Security, specializing in offensive services and consultation. But if you haven't, you should check out their site, riversecurity.eu. They have a blog and news section that is, or excuse me, news and blog section that has a lot of cool content, including a companion article for this very webcast. So if you have any questions for Chris during the webcast, please enter them into the Q&A window at any time. And we have a lot of content to cover today, so please do enter them as we go. Chris will be monitoring. I'll try to monitor as well. Please note that our webcast is being recorded and will be available for viewing later in your SANS account under My Webcasts. And so with that, take it away, Chris.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Randall, for a great introduction. Everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully you see these beautiful fighter jets, not yet copyright stricken by Paramount. Nice one, Randall. But basically, PowerPoint has this amazing feature called Pimp My Slide, or actually it's design, but they will give you recommended slide design if you click that design button. And this is what came up, and I'm like, wow, I'll take it. Because what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about disrupting nation states and cyber criminals by basically being better at what they do in their own trade. Primarily continuous attack surface management. What is that? And always on pen testing. What is that? So first of all, Randall did a great introduction. Just a quickie. My name, Chris Dale. I'm from Norway, casting from Bergen today. There's a bit cloudy. It's been raining a little bit, but alas, what can you do about that, right? Principal over at River Security and also co-founder and also a principal instructor at SANS. So I do travel the world and teach quite a bit. When I'm not teaching, however, most of my work actually is for penetration testing and incident response. So you could say that I show how criminals break in and I also help kick them back out. A little alphabet soup of certifications. I do love this field that we're in, and this is also why I create presentations like this to give back to the community and challenge the existing norm. There are ways to make things better. The old is not necessarily the right. And looking at how my customers get value, I've come up with some new concepts that I found to be very valuable, and I'll share some of those things in this presentation, okay? So hopefully you will find it valuable. In terms of questions and so on, I just put them into the chat. I will not necessarily be able to follow up on the questions during the chat, but at the end, if we do have any time to spare, I will spend all of that time answering questions. Furthermore, we are living in 2022, so you have all your chances in the world to ask me questions on Twitter, ask me questions on LinkedIn, etc. We're kind of available these days. Now, open question to you all. You don't have to type this out, but think for yourself. Think long and hard about why do we do penetration testing? What's the goal of a penetration testing? So that you can discover some vulnerabilities, maybe break in, show the customer, say, hey, look at me, I'm a big boy, I got a shell. Or is it maybe to ensure long-term longevity or long-term security of an organization so that they have a continued improvement of security, right? Most likely you're on the latter. We want to be able to show the customer ways to help them in the long term on how to be more securely. But then if you think about why we buy and procure a pen test today, it is very often to get a short-term sense of security. Are we there yet? Can we sleep good at night? Can somebody hack me tomorrow? That's often the questions that somebody wants to have answered while procuring a pen test. And very often the questions are not necessarily answered, and the long-term success of security is also not necessarily improved very much by pen testing. So I'm gonna drop in on these topics and talk a bit more about how we can do better for our customers and help them out even greater. There's a couple of problems that I have seen within the pen testing space, and I've come up with solutions to, and so on. And I've seen both sides of the spectacle. I've been a CISO for 3 years time. I've had to procure pen tests from pen testing companies, and I've seen the challenges. I haven't necessarily slept well at night after receiving a pen test. I've had to sit down and dictate scopes and so on. And on the flip side, for many, many years now, I've also been providing pen tests, and I've seen those challenges too. There are many quirks to solve. It's not just straightforward. And it's one of the reasons for this talk, because I want to talk about some of these challenges and how we can do better. For example, as a client, right? I want to buy a pen test from you, right? What's the scope? How much is it going to cost? What systems should be included? Should we do phishing, smishing? Should we do all of these other things? Should we have authenticated users? And the bill just goes up. And you're like, yeah, what the scope is. Why don't you let me come up with the scope, and I'll figure out some IP addresses and some domain names that you can pen test on, and let's call it that. That will be the scope. Very often, if you are a pen tester, you have seen this yourselves, very often a customer just wants to get this one web application approved, so to speak. It just needs to get this stamp, pen tester has been on it, and you're happy about it. But while the pen tester is working, they're like, why am I stuck on this one application? I want to be over here where I see APIs that look flaky, or I see outdated, I see CVE stuff on web servers and stuff. That's where you really wanted to attack, but you're stuck with a scope. Also, the client doesn't necessarily know how hackers think, how hackers operate. They don't necessarily stay on top of the most current attacks and trends and so on. So for the client to say something about the scope this early in the stages is not necessarily ideal. And very often the pen testing turns into a once-a-year approach at most. As a provider, we have similar problems. When you're going to offer somebody a pen test, you're going to help them with the scope, you ask yourselves again, what is the scope? And how do you find out? As a hacker, how are you supposed to figure out what the scope of a pen test should be? I mean, that would almost engage you directly. That would almost make you have to start work directly in reconnaissance and scanning and discovery. So most likely the customer won't know what they should keep in scope. You could maybe sit down in scope meetings and so on and figure out a scope. But nobody likes those meetings. It's annoying. And typically we want to avoid that. We want to make it very, very easy for a customer to just sign a contract and engage somebody. Let's get more secure. Not, well, how much is this going to cost? And like this and that, and all kind of different issues and problems in discussing about scope. Very often as well, we are stuck with the single applications or a very narrow scope. And when we start the test, we notice all of those systems where we want to pen test, right? And what should you do as a pen tester? Should you tell the customer, look, I'm working on these applications over here, but I just found the holy grail. I really want to pen test over here. And the customer says, how much does it cost? You say, well, it's going to cost like probably the double. And everybody is annoyed of the surprise scope creep. All of a sudden, there's a boost in cost and so on. Nobody anticipated this. And you're left with a very sour taste in your mouth. And that's not an ideal for any party. And then let me ask you, attackers. Look at this Pimp My Slide here, huh? It's all animated, cool. But attackers, do they care about scope at all? I mean, a real threat actor, whether it's a cyber criminal, a script kiddie, whether it's a nation state, do they care about scope? Or do they care about the opportunities that exist day by day and what they might be finding in that specific instance that they're testing? I have this, I'm going to try to show you a YouTube video. I think it will be fine. I'm just going to narrate it myself because I don't believe we're going to have audio. But I find this video here to be frankly awesome. I really like this one here because here we have the CISO in a bulletproof vest and we have the pen tester next to him. Let's look at what happens. CISO hands the pen tester a gun. Shoot me, right? Come on, really? Shoot me. I won't shoot you, man. Come on, I really don't want to shoot you. It's like, I'm here for you. All right, let's do it. Shoots him in the foot, right? Come on. Isn't that what companies want? They want to feel secure. They want to know that their foot is unprotected, but the scope very often limits us into shooting at the bulletproof vest of a customer. They want you to pen test their front websites where they have the web application firewall, where they have all the latest and greatest detection and prevention mechanisms and so on. Well, the real attackers, they sneak in the back door. Those old forgotten systems that you didn't know you had, those systems are the ones that get popped. Ask me about it. I know if you do incident response, you probably know too. During incident response, how often haven't you been in a case where when you figure out the root cause analysis, when you figure out how they broke in, the entire room goes collectively like, oh no, that server or that user or whatever. Very often, the attackers break in via trivial means or via the path least traveled, where you didn't, like, think of shadow IT and data that you didn't know you had out there, ungoverned systems and so on. How are you ever gonna pen test those? They won't be in scope ever. So my solution several years ago now, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, I decided to say, hold up, this is wrong. I don't want to do this anymore for my customers. Instead, here's a suggestion. Why don't you hire us for a much less money for what we call a digital attack surface report first? Let us fingerprint you, figure out what kind of systems you have, what you look like out there, and basically give you a report on where we recommend you to buy the pen test. Yes, this is a paid engagement. It's a much lower scale or less involved type of engagement. We are not actually going to try to break into the customer. We're just going to scan, enumerate, and discover assets. And we're going to look at them. And based on my hunch, my look at your system, you see me drooling when I look at your system. I go like, old PHP custom system. If you see me drooling, go like, I want to pen test this. Why let me? Why not just fix up those systems from the get-go? Why order a pen test on them? If I can tell you, hey, you very likely have problems on this system, this system, this system, you have IAS short naming on this system, we see leaked credentials over here, we have all of these problems over here, we can find those things by just looking. Why not just work on that and fix those outstanding items before you even consider a pen test? And most importantly, is when you do decide to procure a pen test, you will select most likely the assets that we recommend you to, or you don't do a pen test at all. It's up to you, because this kind of reporting is very valuable in its own. However, most importantly, when you do select assets for a pen test, you also actively know what you did not decide to pen test. Those outstanding items that you did not ask for a pen test on will be with you, and you will have knowledge of that attack surface that haven't been tested yet. And that's a great thing. It is an easier way when we split this type of engagement, a pen test, basically into a digital footprint report and a pen test. We're basically making it much easier for the customer to commit in working with us, build up some trust. I mean, considering I will be mapping out your attack surface. If I did a bad job or you didn't like engaging with my company, you can take our report or our data and then hire somebody else to do the pen test for you. So it's no vendor lock-in whatsoever. It is quite nice. And the digital footprint reports give immediate value by just having professionals look at your systems without trying to break in. We get immediate value. That's beautiful. That is awesome. And that takes us into attack surface management. Now, I did not invent attack surface management. CASM, or continuous attack surface management, is a trending hashtag. It is something Gartner and others are currently starting to hype up. But this is directly correlated or directly related into what we call attack surface management. You cannot clean your house when the lights are out, and attack surface management is all about turning on those lights to help you know yourself. What kind of assets do you have? What kind of version numbers are they on? What kind of users have been leaked? What kind of software, and more. And if you look at the high-level penetration testing methodology, what we're really doing is, from a pen test, we're saying that these two phases, reconnaissance, discovery, and scanning, these have been extracted out, and we're continuously doing them over and over, looking for new systems, new versions that are outdated, new opportunities to break into the customer, but we don't necessarily do exploitation and verification. Basically, we're just always out there trying to know what you look like so that you can make, well, actionable decisions or good decisions, healthy decisions about whether or not you should patch, you should take something offline, and what the current status is. Okay, so attack surface management is all about discovering opportunities as companies change and build and they grow and so on. Because as we change, IT also changes. It gets outdated, it gets reconfigured, and all of a sudden it's vulnerable. And by doing this continuously, by always doing reconnaissance, scanning, and discovery, you could argue that those phases are the most important phases of a pen test. We can help uncover shadow IT and dark data and those mysteries that make you not sleep well at night. Hopefully, we can get those skeletons out of the closet so that you can make healthy decisions about what you have and how to deal with it. It's all about letting the customers know themselves and us giving them actionable advice on whether or not how they can improve and so on. And to succeed in this space, attack surface management, what is typically the key to success is having the best reconnaissance phase. We want to find the path least traveled. Just like this car in this meme, we want to take the exit to exploits. We want to find those systems that are old, that are forgotten, that are different or somehow curious to a penetration tester. Because very often that's what the real threat actors out there find, and it lets the attackers in. So how do we find the roads less traveled? It's basically by always being always on the lookout, asking open source intelligence about information, having word lists that are super targeted for your company, parsing through your product sheets, parsing through your presentation material, your PDFs, and building very nice word lists that we can use for virtual host enumeration, and we can use it for web content enumeration, and always scanning, always on the lookout for what there is to find. And the better we can learn our customer, the better we can find that path least traveled. In fact, we can cheat as good guys, as the defenders and as a red team and a blue team. We can mix and we can turn it into purple. So we can do zone transfers. We can have a read-only user in your cloud, and we can cheat and find those systems and monitor them before, well, and basically to rate the attractiveness of those systems and help customers understand. This is the very idea of attack surface management, letting customers do asset inventory and software inventory continuously, always being able to address the risk as we are progressing and building our organizations. And that's the key word. Our businesses, most of the time, really want development. They want to see movement of their organization forward. They want to build, they want to buy, they want to ensure that they have momentum. And by having that momentum, they're gonna be increasing your attack surface. They really typically want to, well, have more. They want to procure software as a services. They want to take advantage of what the cloud offers and so on. And there's a bit of a dilemma here, because as cybersecurity people, we are often inclined to say, no, hold up, brakes on the pedal. We need to slow down. We need to say, no, you cannot have whatever you want to have, it needs to be governed, it needs to be controlled. And when we have this kind of security operation, when all we do is saying no instead of yes, but, what happens is that the organizations, they keep on in the direction that they're heading. They will alienate the security team and they will still continue to build and innovate. It will just be ungoverned and unmanaged, and you will have massive amount of shadow IT and dark data. Your marketing department and sales, trust me when I say they will find a way around you if you're in the way, okay? So we have this dilemma, and attack surface management helps us compromise. It helps us basically say that IT is hard. Let's put it into a system where we can help address issues as they arise continuously. Now then, what is always on pen testing? And just like with the house, where when the lights are out, we can't clean it, always on pen testing says, clean the house when there is anything to spot. Basically, we are weaponizing continuous attack surface management, and we say any new attack surface, any new type of opportunity present to the world and to the pen testers, instead of doing a week-long engagement, we'll do a micro engagement and try that opportunity as it arises. Log4j, great example. As Log4j happens, we have permission to execute protocol, whatever, and launch those attacks so that we can help you survive. We will be your attackers' best friends on the internet, your criminal best friends on the internet, always doing our best to break in based on what opportunities we see right here and right now. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this next sections. We're going to be assessing the risk, and we're going to look at the opportunities. We're going to be weaponizing CVEs. We're going to be doing a lot of cyber threat intelligence, hunting for exploit code. We're going to be looking for opportunities, finding credentials, being the best hacker for our customers, not once a week, but every single day in multiple iterations. That is exciting. So look at this as micro engagements, agileness. I mean, look at developers, even IT operations. They have made it to agile. And you can love or you can hate agile. However, it is time for security to move faster. We need to start hacking continuously, highly inspired by bug bounty hunters. And we need to do our work every single day, not snapshots once a year, once a quarter. It's not how the real criminals work. Right now, if you're not doing this already, right now, if you look at a traditional penetration tester or a pen test company, it's like we're playing a completely different sport than real attackers. Real attackers, they're playing tennis, boom, in the big leagues, boom, boom. And we're here playing badminton in a summer camp, bim, bim. Or if you want another analogy, it's like we're turtles and the real attackers are cheetahs running much, much faster than us. We need to play the same sport as the attackers. We need to become the same or work in the same modus operandi as the attackers. That's what it's all about. It's about speed and agility, highly inspired by military combat and dogfights. Yes, I hope you've seen Maverick. I liked it. Anyways, it's said in the military that two fighter jet pilots, the winner of a dogfight is typically the pilot who has the most OODA loops in that combat. Every second, you evaluate your surroundings, you observe, you orient, you decide, and you act, and you repeat. And the fighter pilot who has the most OODA loops, quickest to act in a correct manner, will win the dogfight. Guess what? It actually works in cyber too, if you ask me. In cyber, if you are the first one to observe a change to attack surface, if you're the first one to find a domain, first one to utilize leaked credentials, first one to discover a port has been opened, or a bucket has been misconfigured, or whatever it might be, well, guess what? You now have the opportunity to orient yourself. Is there any risk for the customer? If there is, decide on a exploit, decide on what you're going to do. Can you hack the customer now? And based on that question, can you hack the customer now? Yes or no? If you can, let the customer act faster than the criminals can go in and decide to hack the customer. You have won the fight. Then it's on to the next fight. Observe, orient, decide, and act. If we can act faster than the criminals can exploit us, we're winning. Agileness is a good thing here. You want me to always be looking at you. And you might be going like, oh, but Chris, how can I let you pen test me whenever the hell you want? Are you crazy? I have ICS systems, I have production networks. I won't let you pen test me every single day. Are you mad, son? Let me tell you something. If you're thinking that right now, I want to remind you, you're on the internet, okay? If I find ICS systems, industrial control systems on the internet, you know what? I'm not going to try to hack them. I'm going to ask you what the hell is going on. Put a firewall in front of these systems ASAP. The other systems that you are worried about, availability, uptime, and so on, guess what? They're already being attacked by scrupulous attackers, script kiddies and nation states alike. They're all trying to hack you. Check your logs. Put a server up in DigitalOcean, $5 and see how long does it take until somebody tries to break into your server. We're talking minutes. You're under attack already. And now you have an opportunity to work with a professional company, a penetration testing company, professionals. Guess what? If they break something, if all of a sudden one of our pen testers colleagues in this industry takes your service down, we know what happened. We can see I ran attacks. All of a sudden, the application is no longer responding. Wow, that's a huge hit on availability. Somebody should tell somebody, because you don't want me to decide when you make money. Or do you? Is that acceptable for you? Most likely not. Most likely availability, like in the triad of all cybersecurity, we have availability, confidentiality, and integrity. And you very highly value availability. So if I'm able, not intentionally necessarily, but if I'm able to prove that I can ruin your availability, and I know what most likely caused it to happen, that's a great thing that we should celebrate and applaud. That is improvements of one of the most important things for you in your organization. Hence, we can now deal with it. Otherwise, you have given me the capability to decide when you make money and when you do not. You don't want that. All right, cool. So it's all about maturity right now, okay? And what I'm here to try to help the industry with is maturity. If you look at these points here, we're seeing that the most reactive thing that you can do today is incident response, right? You have a problem, there's a fire in the data center, a virtual fire, whatever, but when you have to go clean up, you are very, very much reactive. Then as companies mature, they typically procure or invest in firewalls, next generation firewalls, antivirus, EDR agents, and so on. They're investing in blocking attacks, but very much so, we're not necessarily proactively protecting anything, most likely, although some of the agents and so on can support cyber threat intelligence feeds and so on. This is primarily quite reactive still. Next up, when companies have matured to the point where they have invested in cybersecurity, they ask themselves, what's next? And they go chase down a pen testing company like our own, for example, and they say, can you please try to hack us? We want to know if, are we there yet? Are we bulletproof? Can you break in? And this is where companies, and we have all those problems that we talked about earlier, right? Once a year, we'll check to see if our farm has any openings in the fence. Can sheep get out? Can wolves get in? Once a year, we are checking that fence to see, can we get broken into during a penetration test? But guess what? It's 2022. We have nanobot technology and drones. We have all kinds of technology that can help us continuously monitor our perimeter, and that's attack surface management, okay? We're gonna get there. So they will buy a pen test, and then they ask themselves, all right, what's next? And very often, from my experience, customer wants to mature into a security operations. They want managed detection and response. They want to invest in some kind of 24/7 operation. They want to take in all the alerts from their systems into a security information event management system or a SIM. And they want to start like dealing with security more continuously. And that's fine, but I see a lot of companies struggle with this step. It's a lot of investment, and still we're kind of like almost half the scale on the scale here in terms of proactiveness versus reactiveness. We're not tremendously proactive. We're still sitting inside of our castle with our spears, waiting for somebody to jump over the wall and say, "Boo, I'm here." That's your antivirus giving you an alert. Yes, there are elements of proactiveness. We have cyber threat intelligence. We have vulnerability management systems and so on that can help the security operations mature better and become more proactive. But in my honest opinion, it's a challenge for a lot of companies to even get to this point here of security operations and managed detection and response. It's typically expensive and it's a bit hard. And what I'm challenging the industry in is I'm saying, hey, maybe instead of trying to mature directly into a security operations center, why don't you mature from a penetration testing done on a snapshot basis? Why don't you mature into a continuous attack surface management and always on penetration testing? Why don't you give your trusted information security company the weapons and freedom to have some of the best hackers in the world perhaps try to break into your organization continuously? That might be more proactive than you waiting for an alarm inside of your security operations. And this is what I'm going to talk about in our final slides here for the next 30 minutes. Building an offensive security operations center. Yeah, security operations centers is not just for the defense. For an offense operations, which is what I'm running, which is what nation states are running and so on, we want to create alerts that present opportunities to break into an organization. We want to look to see, is there any new certificate internet-facing domains? Basically, do we find anything new in the DNS? Do we find anything new in the certificate transparency logs and so on? We want to see and maybe subscribe to NIST based on our OSINT, based on our scanning. We have a ton of technology representing this organization. Is there any CVEs on this technology? And here's the most important question. If there is a CVE, the question is, can you hack the customer with that CVE? Being or hiring an offensive team to do this kind of work for you is a highly successful activity. My customers receive value on this every single day. And I'm going to talk about each and every one of these things here, like brand monitoring, what we can do, emails, social media, network services, sensitive information. There is so much potential for us to weaponize reconnaissance, scanning, and discovery and pen test every single delta, every single new opportunity that we discover in the industry or on the internet and what we see in the attack surface. We ask ourselves, can we now hack the customer? And that has a tremendous value. For example, take a look at public domains, right? Domains. Typically, we provision a domain so that we can attach it to an IP address so that we can easily access the service. When are new domains provisioned? Can we be let know about that? For example, through DNS zone transfers or DNS integrations, we might not even have to knock on a single door. We might be able to just say, hey, DNS server, do you have this domain XYZ? Do you have this domain ABC? We can knock on those doors and we can try to brute force our way in. We can use very targeted word lists and find all kinds of interesting things. Or we can use the certificate transparency logs, or not or, but instead and. There are many ways to discover attack surface. For example, ripping apart your mobile applications that you have, we often find a lot of interesting attack surface. One of the things that I'm going to show you quickly here is certificate transparency logs, how we can use this to find attack surface and even phishing domains and more that has been set up. For example, cert.sh, or as I have on a slide here for reference, there's also other websites where you can go ask, the certificate transparency log is an amazing resource to build out attack surface. Why or what is this even? Basically, when you create a new certificate today, perhaps to support HTTPS on your website, when you want that padlock up there, you need to create a certificate, and that certificate is provisioned by a certificate authority. Whenever a new certificate is provisioned, you will publish this certificate in a public log. This website allows you to query that public log. Bit different than what me and my team does, but I'll show you nevertheless. For example, I can search for, say, %sans.org, and I can ask what kind of subdomains have been, or what kind of certificates have been created for sans.org. I search through the database and I find all kinds of interesting systems, potentially interesting systems. I find alternative names, I find common names, and I can basically now add this to my attack surface. And the moment there is a new domain, I can be one of the first ones to check it out. Very effective thing to do during bug bounty testing, and also very effective thing to do during attack surface management and always on pen testing, because you might get lucky and find some new thing that allows you to now hack the customer. Now, here's the thing. We don't do it like this. We don't necessarily query the beautiful website cert.sh. Look at this design, right? It's awesome. But instead of searching for sans.org or say river security, what we're going to search for is the brand. For example, sans or river security or rivsec or whatever what we call real name a customer has. We will basically search through the continuous flow of new certificates for anything that represents, say, for example, river security or sans. This allows us to find things like, say, sanssecurityconference.com, and we can assess it to see, does this hold any interesting things for us to hack the customer? We will find things like GDPR, riversecurity.com. This can be registered by anybody today. And because we're not looking for riversecurity.eu, for example, we're just looking for highlight the word river security. We do get a ton more false positives, but we also find phishing domains and other interesting developments for our customer's brand. And that is really nice. A friend of mine and a colleague at River Security, Vegard, we also did some research piggybacking on archive teams, URL teams research on brute forcing URL shorteners. Yeah, URL shortening services, like tiny URL, bit.li and such. Those URLs are continuously brute forced by a team called URL team that belongs to archive team. They brute force and they look at the links and see what is behind them. And me and Vegard, we did some research on this, and we found a ton of very sensitive information within these data sets. We found attacks in progress, booking reservations, local file inclusions, SQL injection, copies of backups and SQL databases, all kinds of short links that led to being an attacker was very easy. Now, here's what we do with this kind of data today. Not only do we find sensitive information sometimes, but we also look for our customers' brand names. So all of a sudden, we find a mention of our customer or a customer's brand. We immediately jump on that short link and we explore it to see, has an IT admin made a mistake shortening a URL to some internal service? Is there an attacker who's shortening a service or a URL while attacking? What is it? We want to address it. What about park domains? Right? Many of my customers, several thousands of employees per customer here, they have tons of domains, many of them parked. They're just registered, so nobody else can register them and steal the domain off their fingers in the future. So what can we do with parked domains, and what should we do? Expect those domains to be activated in the future. That's what any good attacker would do. If something is parked today, tomorrow it might be in use, right? So we can monitor not only the website, this domain is parked, to see if it ever changes. We can also monitor DNS and see, does this domain ever change DNS? Because if it does, guess what? There's an informational low risk alert to a member of my team or whatever attack surface management always on pen testing team that you use. This alert will say, dear pen tester, check this out now because something just changed and there might be new attack surface now. That's our ideas, right? Many, many such checks, offensive alerts, new opportunity, new change. It might be a low risk, but it's still something that might lead into a critical one. What about network services, right? If there's any ports that all of a sudden open, you need to know about this. You need to check and see if there are new changes in the firewall that might allow an attacker a way in. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to scan every 65,536 TCP and UDP port. You can scan them in less regular intervals as, for example, you scanning the top 576 most common ports in the world. By scanning the top 576 most common ports in the world, which is quite easy and quite fast, you will discover 90% of the available attack surface online, at least according to Nmap, right? So you can do this kind of scan, you can put it into a system, and when there's something that has opened, have somebody assess that situation. If all of a sudden I see you expose port 445 open on the internet, or all of a sudden there's 3389 open on the internet, I'm going to ask you, what the hell is going on? You just opened up SMB to the world. Do you want to get hacked? Is this a malicious insider? What's going on? 3389, remote desktop protocol. All right, you're going to have brute force attacks coming in now, and we're going to be among those doing those brute force attacks. We're going to do credential stuffing, and we're going to do slow and steady attacks, password spraying on this service, unless you take it back and remove it from the firewall rules. You don't want it online. The cool thing about scanning and scanning in continuous cycles in different configurations is that we sometimes see ports that are oscillating. We see ports that are open every Friday at 6 o'clock and it closes at Friday at 10 o'clock, for example. And that's when we plan out next week at Friday. I'm going to be ready and I'm going to look at that port and figure out what it is. You also, of course, have service detection, where you try to have your port scanner connect to the port and interact with the service behind it to pull out more information, like banners, version numbers, or even run scripts against the service that you can store and arm your team of pen testers and security analysts and so on with information that might help them assess the risk going forward. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. And there's just so much potential out there. There's just so many things that we could talk about. Like, for example, HTTP trackers. When you open up a website, you're getting tracked. Those trackers have unique identifiers that allows you to implement the same tracker across multiple domains, multiple websites, and so on. If we can save and store your trackers, we can Google and query for the same trackers to see, can we find more attack surface? If I find another website that has implemented the exact same New Relic or Google Tag Manager tracking identifier, I'm going to assume that system belongs to you. And the same thing we can do with favorite icons. We can do it with the JARM signatures for SSL TLS configurations. We can do it with so many things where we can say this domain most likely is our customers because they're so similar. They have the same mail exchange, they have the same name server, they have the mention of the company name on their website in the HTML source, all kinds of attributes that we can add to score a system and say, this is with very high likelihood our customer. Say, for example, we find a website like the one you see on this slide here. Some 404, some 200 OK splash website, some 403 not authorized. Don't you think an attacker is going to give up? You're actually telling us the opposite. When we see a splash website, when we see something that says, well, this application doesn't work really, it's just there for the moment, we are actually incentivized. That's a word, I believe. We want to attack you now because what else is there behind this splash website? We know there's something, right? There's got to be something. Otherwise, why would you have the web server online? And we're going to look We're going to crawl, we're going to guess and enumerate, we're going to build our word lists. For example, with Cool, a Ruby script by Robin Wood over in the UK, DigiNinja, we can create very targeted word lists that helps us build out, hopefully, something that will allow us to know what's behind this web application. Even though it just says IIS or Apache default website or Nginx starting up, doesn't matter. We want to discover what's behind it because we expect there to be something. And this is the cool thing. Working as an offensive engineer for a customer, you know what we can do? If I can't figure out what's behind your friggin' web server, I can just ask you. Yeah, I can say, look, security by obscurity, it's not going to work in the long run, but right now it worked against me. You want to arm me with some new tech, some new intelligence? You want to tell me what application pool, what virtual host header I need to set to find whatever application is behind this IIS web server? You should tell me. Don't hide behind the fact that I couldn't find it. Expect there to be a hacker smarter than I am. Give me the information now. Let me assess your system. And that's working together. Bug bounty tip, pro tip number one, I would say, is IIS short name scanning. It is such a beautiful technique that we recommend our customers to turn off whenever we find it. What is it? It is your Windows servers today supports resolving paths that are of the old DOS style type of path. So for example, say you have a folder, documents and settings, or for example, like whatever, my photos or anything like backup data.zip, for example. Whenever you have something that is longer than 6 characters, then you will see that your systems supports resolving those files by, say, for example, backups data. This will be stored as backup ~1, and that's how the file name can be referenced. We can find and brute force our way to discover that there is something called backup, and we can brute force the extension. We can go through all. We can do like A tilde and check, is it A, is it B tilde, is it C tilde? And then we get to Z, we get a different result from the web server, and meaning that the extension starts with zip, Z. And then we can guess maybe it's zip. And if it's correct or not, we can guess up to 3 characters of the extension, allowing us to essentially learn what's behind a web server. What files does it hold? And we can learn the 6 first characters of the name and also the 3 first of the extension. And very often that's enough for us to be able to fully guess what the path of the file name is. And we reveal so much sensitive files here for our customers that it ain't even funny, right? Short name scanning, check it out. It is awesome for an attacker. It is hell for a defender, because you're basically just, your web server is fully transparent to outsiders looking in. They can find your files that you have hosted in your web directories. All right, we're getting somewhere, right? Now, I'm not going to have time to talk about all of these things here, right? But rest assured, these slides will go public. Randall have already asked me for the slides. I will make these slides public so that you can click through them step by step and read what kind of bullets I have on the slides. You're also welcome to reach out to me on social media, of course, and ask, Chris, what do you mean about this? How do you implement this? And we can have a discussion either in social media publicly, or we can even do direct messages. Nevertheless, let's talk about the technology stack, because there is technology out there that might be vulnerable or not. In fact, you have websites, OSINT websites like builtwith.com, Wapalizer and others that allow you to purchase detailed information about what technology a company has been attributed with. I can, for example, go to riversecurity.eu, and while running Wapalizer or asking their paid APIs, they will tell me, you're running WordPress, this JavaScript library, this web server, this kind of middleware, this kind of stack on top of it. It will give me a lot of great information. Even by running Nmap, you will get a lot of information about what technology and version numbers you're running. So when we're building on offensive security operations, what we're really doing is that we are building a database on every single vendor or technology that multiple different tools, or we call them collectors, retrieve. So we have automation that produces lists of technology, and we normalize it, and we can then very quickly ask ourselves, say, for example, when Log4j happened, Spring Boot happened, new vulnerabilities, we just had an F5 vulnerability, I believe, and there's always something new like the Atlassian Confluence. Say, recently, I think it was on Monday, Confluence or Atlassian, all of a sudden there's a vulnerability there, right? Immediately, you should, as an offensive engineer, if you're doing things right, you should be able to say, give me every product mentioning Atlassian, or anything Confluence, or anything Java, anything Apache related. You should be able to create long lists of assets that might pertain whatever news has hit, whatever notable event that is currently happening. That is great. So for example, when Log4j happened just during Christmas, in fact, it was the day we were going to have a Christmas party, we initially said, all right, backend, show us every single application that can host Java. And then we realized, no, wait, we need to go wider. Give us anything running HTTP. Let's just assume it might be Java. And we targeted our customers immediately with Log4j or Log4Shell attacks, just to see if we could get in. And that attack, in just a few hours, we had several hits, and we developed our attacks and kept on sharpening the knife across the weekend, and helped improve the security for the people on the service. Now, there's also vulnerabilities pertaining on technology, right? So you might purchase a licensed vulnerability scanner. You might go with something free, OpenBAS, Nuclei scanner, or something else. Doesn't matter. You might even have multiple of each, like we do. But when there is a vulnerability, your job as a pen tester is not to scream to the customer, ah, wolf, wolf, wolf. No. Stop with the wolf, wolf, wolf. The more we cry wolf, and there's actually no way for us to hack the customer, the less they're going to trust us. So what we need to do is, unless we can actually prove with a vulnerability that we can exploit the customer, or there's a very high likelihood of, for example, hits against availability, and we don't want to prove that, unless there is any risk that we can prove, or with high likelihood say, you need to work on this now, then we can wait and tell the customer in, for example, a daily or a weekly or a monthly report. If the customer doesn't have to act immediately, don't alert it in their face like, big deal, WordPress 9.3 CVSS score, big deal. Turns out, to exploit the vulnerability, you need to be an author of the WordPress. Dear pen tester, dear attacker, do you have an account on the WordPress so you can exploit that 9.3 CVSS vulnerability? No? Fine. Then our customer most likely will be fine until next weekend when they have their patch management window. All right? That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make it a bit more agile and smooth and interactive. Focus on the correct things, not all the noise. There's so much noise. In fact, for all the technology that we attribute to a customer, we subscribe to NIST's JSON updates. So they have all kinds of updates with new common vulnerabilities and exposures all the time. And we have a team that basically assesses the risk and asks ourselves, do we need to forward this to a pen tester, or is it just, nah, put it in the report? That's great. All right. So in terms of cloud, we have lots of opportunities in the cloud as well. So there are ways. So for example, if you've taken my 504 class, for example, you know there are many ways we can enumerate the cloud, we can scan the cloud, we can find misconfigured buckets and so on. We can brute force, and we can look for bucket squatting domains, all kinds of different interesting cloud related things. Several OSINT sources out there. TLS scan can give us common names and alternate names for all things hosted over TLS, for example. We can brute force. We can do lots of great things as a real attacker. However, we can also cheat. Yes, we're the good guys. A customer has hired someone to help them figure out if they can be hacked. A customer can provision a new identity in Google Cloud, in Azure, in DigitalOcean, in Amazon. They can provision an identity that has read-only privileges to say, list every asset, list every endpoint, describe every bucket or whatever, every storage unit and so on. And just like that, a pen testing team, they can snap build a list of every available endpoint, every infrastructure as a service, every storage, every software as a service, and just assume these endpoints are available out there on the internet. Even if they're not, we're going to assume they are. They might not be today, they might not be tomorrow, but maybe someday somebody reconfigures your cloud and opens up something that shouldn't be opened up. And that then we can learn about that happening and assess the risk. And also, many of your cloud assets are already designed to be on the internet. We might not just find them very easily because it is possible to hide in the cloud slightly today. So especially when you have GUIDs and UUIDs and randomized names when provisioning services, it can be sometimes hard to find somebody, but still we can cheat and we can be together with the good guys, the best attackers out there. So in my presentation, I go through all kinds of different things we can do. And I want you to consider the things that I've said, but just know that there's so much more. There are code repositories out there, GitHub organizations, repository names that can be guessed, enumerated, APIs that can be queried, Bitbucket, and all kinds of other repository solutions that we can go in and check, packet managers, repositories that contain keywords of our customers. And we can use tools like TruffleHog to find secrets in them and so on. It is great. We can pivot off private users, private GitHub accounts. We can find, even with credentials, this is highly powerful if we're allowed to do so. But if we can pivot from a company email into a private email, if I can look for Chris Dale's Gmail account and look for breach credentials on that one, that will hold fruits that might work for company corporate accounts as well. So there's just so much potential. And with third parties, identifying supply chains, getting lists of all the software as a services that they are using, so we can help monitor for breaches, help monitor for leaks. Say, for example, when Nordic Choice Hotels were hacked. Nordic Choice Hotels that were hacked a couple of months ago, immediately we scoured the dark web. We want to find that dump, those files that now criminals have access to. We want to find them because there might be a mention of a customer. There might be PDFs, passwords, and other things that might impact a customer of us. So we want to understand that. And mobile applications, rip them apart, reverse engineer, decompile them, extract every single endpoint to your data centers, all those REST APIs, all those XML configurations, the settings and so on. Take that, look for secrets, look for APIs, look for anything that might be useful in breaking in to the target organization. This is possible. And you can see some of the points here. We can monitor for new applications. We can monitor for versions. Here's some links to the different app stores that you can monitor for. There's just endless amounts of potential. I'm not going to spend hours upon hours on all of these points here. But sensitive information, like say WordPress, does not hold sensitive information. There are APIs in WordPress where I can go snap, give me a list of every uploaded file, and WordPress will show me every uploaded file to WordPress. Now, what if there's a sensitive file uploaded, a zip file, a spreadsheet? We want to be the first ones to discover so that we can assess the risk. Google dorking, yeah, Google have paid APIs. You can dork as much as you want, as long as you pay for licenses. You might get 1,000 or even 100,000 results on a Google dork targeting your company or your list of companies. However, once you go from 100,000 results to a 100,001, ask yourself, what is that one new hit that was discovered? That's the one that you want to figure out if there's something new, monitoring the deltas. Social media, there's social media accounts with shared logins, super dangerous. We have VIPs in organizations that lets you administrate their LinkedIn and Facebook's, Twitter accounts. Personal accounts might be targetable. If they allow it to happen, it can be very, very useful. Some organizations, they do sentiment monitoring. So we can give basically a solution, a list of social media accounts, and we can see if there's any threats or negative reactions towards it. Can be quite nice. User and accounts and emails. Like there's so much in this, so much in a email address. It's not just for phishing, it's also a username across multiple services. We might be able to log in. In many cases, we might be able to register for accounts in a company target company, and we might be able to just become one of the inside. This is done by pen testing. So in terms of monitoring for leaks, that is highly useful. And we procure, for us at least, and perhaps you should do, not just have I been pawned. Have I been pawned is great, but we want plain text credentials as well. So we purchase sources from other vendors as well to complement our CTI on this aspect. And final points here, brand monitoring. Can an offensive service leverage a brand? Absolutely. Just imagine reverse image searching logos. It is very popular, very powerful. Catchphrases and mottos, we can automate these things quite easily. And here we go. I did a reverse image search on the fingerprint for river security, and you immediately find an attack surface. You find social media accounts, you find domains, LinkedIn, Facebook, and more. This is something that can be automated. And active trace is just a deception element I'm going to skip right now, and we can talk about some other time. Anyways, I want to conclude this presentation. This is how River Security does it. We built automation, and all that automation goes into a team of analysts, not defensive analysts, not your traditional SOC engineer that follows playbooks on how to do root cause analysis and triage, but instead our analysts are offensive. They ask themselves, should I forward this to a pen tester? And if there's any type of problem, we correspond with our customer in manual human interaction and improve the situation. We don't have yet another dashboard. Instead, we say we do data. We store data, we collect data, and we hack. And we can collaborate with our customers from a human-to-human perspective so that we can do knowledge transfer and help our customers. It's not just another alert. So I suggest that you make your data accessible to the customers. They can build their own dashboards, but any type of interaction between an offensive security team and defenders, that interaction, let it be manual, humans to humans, please. Alerts is very often not that valuable, okay? It should be human to human interaction. What we're trying to do here is get out of this castle here. You should not be sitting inside of this castle with your spears and shields, waiting for somebody to break in. No, go outside of the castle and see what does your castle look like from the outside. You see all these people here on the beach? These are here. They might be digging tunnels. There's a convoy outside here planning to go around. There's cyber threat intelligence telling us that we can parachute into the castle. Let us try, right? That's what we're trying to achieve here. And if you're looking at, for example, the Center for Internet Security top 18, these kinds of services, attack surface management and always-on pen testing will definitively help you on more than just inventory, and the most important things here, inventory and control of enterprise assets and software. It will also help you in terms of data protection, secure config, account management, continuous vulnerability management, and more. And finally, point 18, penetration testing. It's not just pen testing, it's a lot more. These kinds of services are quite cool. Basically, here's the Norwegian National Security Agency. The top recommendation is to identify and map. I won't spend time on this though, but check it out yourselves. Really, what it boils down to is the Sun Tzu. I have the Sun Tzu book over here. It's just a tiny little pamphlet, to be honest. But he said, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will not fear the results of 100 battles, right? Famous army generals said these things hundreds of years ago, and it still holds true in IT. And you can know yourself. Asset inventory, attack surface management. You can know your enemy. We live in the age of information. So there's so much information, so many tutorials. We have cyber threat intelligence describing how attackers work. We can know the enemy, and we do. We can sleep better at night. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for showing up. You reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn if you want to. You can also check out previous presentations that I've done, find my YouTube channel, etc. on this link here into Bio Chris Dale. And by all means, check out my company and so on. But really, why I'm having this talk with you and recorded for the entirety of time is because I want this industry to start to bloom. I see validity of this industry by seeing more companies copying what we do, but I also want us to succeed against cyber criminals. We need to succeed for our children, for our parents, for our organizations, so we can trust one another again and thrive online and build businesses and build good, healthy organizations. All right, so I do have, hey, thank you everybody for the comments. Hey, Tyler, nice to see you. I do have 2 questions. I'm gonna quickly jump on those, Randall, before you jump in.
Yep, go right ahead.
Do you advocate for this attack surface mapping happening in the context of both internal and external network penetration tests? Oh, Blake, that's a beautiful question. And yes, you can do this kind of job internally. Just know that it's a very different kind of operation, okay? And we are not doing this at my company right now because we're 10 people. We are a spare, very sharp spare. We don't want to do it internally just yet until we have a customer who recognizes the beta. We can beta for them and help them build this together. But right now, we're not doing it because on the inside, it's a different kind of setting. It's so much more. But I have built basically an overview of our service, what it should look like on the inside. So across your multiple organizations, you would install an agent of ours that allows us remote code execution. And essentially, we can then run commands and collectors and use our backend to map out all your devices and find unauthorized devices, sensitive information, technology, network services, and so on. So yes, the idea is there. You should be doing it internally, continuous attack surface management. But for us, we're a bit careful in buttoning or making our spare less sharp. So we want to be super good from an external point of view right now until we pivot into the internal side as well. So then we have an anonymous comment here or question regarding splitting the pen test in 2. 1, monitor the digital attack surface. 2, decide where to focus pen test. What do you mean by mapping the digital attack surface in practice? Is it checking if there are any new open ports within a set of IP addresses? Or do you also perform more info gathering to monitor possible domains, cloud infra, etc.? It is the latter, my friend. Basically, monitoring the digital attack surface, first of all, involves you building out the entire attack surface. Once you have built out the entire attack surface, you should let the customer know this is our findings, this is our report, so that the customer can learn from it and complement your data with their own results. There might be systems that you haven't seen or found. Your reconnaissance processes might have holes in it, right? And that's when you put it into a system. Once you have produced a good list of what you believe to be the current attack surface of the target, you now want to monitor, does that attack surface ever change? Because that's an opportunity for an attacker. Great question. All right, those were the questions that we had. I want to thank everybody. It's been great. Reach out to me on social media. Talk to me. Don't be strangers, okay? And have a great weekend when that time comes. I'm going to have a beer. It's almost 8 o'clock here.
Thank you very much, Chris, especially, yes, in the evening your time. Thanks for the presentation, bringing these cool concepts to the SANS community. And OSOC, that is very cool stuff. Yeah, I hope to see a lot more on it. You see Chris's handles up there. I think we now know Chris A. Dell. The A is clearly for awesome. So we appreciate the time. Yeah, take that one and run with it. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. For a schedule of all upcoming and on-demand SANS webcasts, please visit sans.org/webcasts. And in the meantime, take care, and we hope to see you on another one. Thanks again, Chris. Talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks, Randall. Bye-bye, everybody. See you.
Bye-bye.